Welcome to our channel, all friends. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe my channel and press the bell icon to stay update for new videos. Thanks. Let's start new video. Anas was an educated and handsome young man who came to our neighborhood as a tenant. He was living separately from his father, and my father saw many qualities in him. He brought him home and introduced him to my mother, saying that he was alone in the world and had no relatives who came to visit him, except for friends. He felt lonely. There's a difference between meeting friends and living with a family. My parents gave him the love of a mother and father, so he became very happy living with us. One day my father said that Anis is a good young man. Why don't we marry him to Sophia and make him a part of our family? My mother and father had already adopted him as a son, and now they were thinking about the marriage. Abrar, my brother, didn't agree. He said, "Father, Anis is indeed a good man. He has a good job. He's well-mannered and decent, but we don't know anything about his family. You've made him a son, but before making him a son-in-law, think about it 1,000 times. Have you forgotten what happened with Api, sister?" Yes, it's true that trusting strangers can be risky. Once we were hurt, and now we have to be cautious. My mother's eyes filled with tears as my brother reminded her of the painful past. Rabia, our beautiful and beloved sister, had been separated from us for many years. She had disappeared from her husband's house in such a way that we never found out what happened to her. Whenever I think of her, it wounds my soul and my heart aches. It has been 15 years since Api Rabia's marriage, which was arranged through an acquaintance. They lived in Multan, while we lived in a small village near Dera Ghazi Khan. Our parents trusted my uncle, Din, and arranged Rabia's marriage to Rahim Dad. Uncle Din had settled in Multan for a long time and was a classmate of my father. Rabia married and moved to Multan. Uncle Din was right. Rahim Dad's family was well off and respected. Api received the love of her in-laws and her husband. She was happy, and we were happy for her as well. Her husband, Rahim Dad, treated us with great respect and hospitality when we first visited their home. My parents were overjoyed, thinking that Allah had blessed their daughter with such a wonderful family and prosperous life, something that very few are lucky enough to have. But as they say, happiness doesn't last forever. Sometimes there's joy, sometimes sorrow. The first sign of trouble in Rabia's life came when her husband, Rahim Dad, started coming home late at night. Initially, she thought it was due to work, but it became a routine. Whenever she asked him why he was coming home late, he would get upset, and eventually the situation escalated into physical abuse. Rabia, being patient, did not tell my parents because in society, such things happen to women every day. She endured it in silence, never complaining. Perhaps this was her mistake. Then her father-in-law passed away, and her mother-in-law, due to old age, came to live with Rabia. This was a time when the two women were the pillars of Rabia's life, supporting her. But when they were no longer there, Rahim Dad's real behavior started to show. He had control over everything, including property, wealth, and money. One day he brought a woman, a prostitute, to his house. This broke Rabia's heart. When this woman, who was well-dressed, sat in front of her, Rahim Dad said, "This is my second wife. Greet her. She will live with us now." Rabia couldn't take it anymore and replied, "If she is your second wife, then buy her a separate house. She won't live here, otherwise I will leave." Rahim Dad, in his usual manner, responded, "She will live here. If you don't want to stay, then you can leave." Rabia didn't want to burden my parents with this pain, so she kept her suffering to herself. But one day we got a call from Rahim Dad saying that Rabia had left the house. My father went to Multan to inquire. Rabia's children were frightened and told us that their father had beaten their mother severely because of that woman. Later in the evening, some men came with mustaches and forcefully took Rabia away in a car. Rahim Dad told my father that she had left on her own without telling anyone. It was clear that she must have come to you, and you must have hidden her so that you could file a case against me. My father sensed that the situation was serious, so he went to the police station and filed a report. However, Rahim Dad was a wealthy and influential man, and he managed to silence the police with his bribes. My father returned from Multan after facing numerous difficulties, remaining silent. He made many efforts to find any trace of his missing daughter, but many years passed and there was no sign of Rabia. I was quite young at the time. But I remember how devastated my mother was upon hearing this news. She couldn't get out of bed for months. Apart from the grief of losing Oppie, managing the household became a major issue for us. For the sake of the other children, perhaps my mother gathered the strength to face life again. It's been many years since, but we still live in the hope that one day our sister will return. One day, Anis's two brothers came to meet my father. They also brought an officer from the department with them. They expressed their intention that Anis wanted to form a relationship with our family, and they had specifically sent the officer to explain his purpose. My father said, "Son, we will think about it and give you an answer later." A meeting was held with my father, mother, and brother. Abrar didn't agree and said that unless Anis introduces a member of his family, we won't allow the relationship with Sophia. We were careless when it came to Rabia's marriage, and she disappeared from our lives. One should not trust strangers, even if they are educated or wealthy. At least, we would know their flaws and virtues. The matter was discussed for a few days, and in the end, my father decided in favor of Anis. He explained to my brother, "Son, every child is born with their own destiny. If Allah wills, Sophia will have a good future with Anis." So the relationship was established, and the future was left to fate. After the wedding, Anis took me to his mansion. He truly proved to be a great husband and a good human being. He was so kind and respectful that every staff member at his house praised him. Everyone considered him an honest, trustworthy, and wealthy person. He gave me respect, love, attention, and everything. One day, while he was away on a trip to Karachi, I was organizing some books when I came across his diary. After reading a paragraph, I was shocked. It dawned on me that he had lied to me when he told me that his parents and relatives were no longer alive. The truth was that his parents were alive and well. Why did he lie to us all? This revelation left me confused and dizzy. What could be the reason behind this lie, and why did he feel the need to deceive everyone? The more I thought about it, the more my confusion and worry grew. I anxiously awaited his return from Karachi. He had said he would be back in a week, but a month passed, and he still hadn't returned. My condition began to worsen, and I couldn't help but think of my sister Rabia's fate. She too had married a stranger, and then she went missing. Finally, after a month, he returned, and I felt a sense of relief, as though my life had been restored. For the sake of preserving my happiness, I chose not to ask him anything. I didn't want to create an unpleasant atmosphere. It's true that a snake is cautious even around a rope, having been bitten before. The fate of my sister was a constant reminder. The days passed, and before I knew it, years had gone by. During this time, Allah blessed me with two beautiful children. I often thought that if there had been any ongoing relationship in Karachi, he would have gone back again. But as time went on, I gradually became at ease. One day I received a call from his office saying he was going to Karachi and would return soon. He said, "Take care of yourself and the children," and left for a week. But he returned 2 weeks later, looking quite upset. That night, as I handed him a glass of milk, I couldn't help but ask, "You've just returned from Karachi after a long time, and you seem troubled. What's wrong? Aren't I your wife? Isn't it my right to share in your joys and sorrows? You've made me a part of your happiness, so don't forget me in moments of trouble. I will always stand by you." Deep inside, my heart was pounding with the fear that maybe you had brought in a co-wife. After hearing my words, he fell into thought, then said, "Sophia, I've endured pain to survive, but that doesn't mean I've been suffering from a young age. People say the eldest child is the most beloved, but that wasn't the case for me. I had other younger siblings, but Wajid, the youngest, was the most beloved by our parents. There was no problem in being loved, but if my parents had been fair to all of us, maybe the resentment in my heart wouldn't have built up over the years of injustice I suffered. Wajid was given expensive branded clothes from large stores, while we were only given from the regular shops. He was sent to the best and most expensive school, while I was sent to a school that had no proper facilities or standards. Over time, this injustice grew, and so did my protests. When I protested more, I would get beaten by father. As time passed, I reached college. One day when I didn't have the money to pay for my registration, I asked father for money, and he scolded me severely. It hurt a lot, and that was when I left the house and went to stay at a friend's place. His father, Mr. Ashraf, comforted me and enrolled me in a good college. I stayed with them for a while, and Mr. Ashraf called my father, informing him that I was with him. My parents came to take me, but I didn't want to go back. However, Mr. Ashraf convinced me to return, and so I went back home. A few days later, Wajid misbehaved with mother. When he was angry, he would even curse her and disrespect father. This time when he did that, I slapped him in anger. That night, when father came home, Wajid complained about me, and without asking me, father started beating me. That night, I decided that I would leave this house and never return. I went back to Mr. Ashraf's house. He called my father again, but father didn't even ask about me or come to take me. He told Mr. Ashraf that he didn't want such a disobedient child. However, mother kept calling me, but I refused to go back to her. Mr. Ashraf comforted me and said that I could stay with him as long as I wanted, but with one condition, that I focus on my studies. I did exactly that. I studied so hard that I topped the class. After completing my education, I got a job in Lahore, so I moved there permanently, leaving Karachi behind. Mr. Ashraf passed away, and my friend also went abroad for work. So I stopped going to their house and focused on my work. Due to my hard work and honesty, I continued to get opportunities for progress. But I never found my own home or family. I was proud, and perhaps never going back home. After marrying you, I went to Karachi to inform my parents and bring you home. But unfortunately, they refused to accept you and said I could return if I married my cousin, the daughter of my uncle. She was my childhood fiancée, and she was still unmarried. I couldn't accept their condition, and I couldn't hurt you either, so I returned sadly without telling you anything. I never told you this because I was ashamed. Safiya, I married you after lying. I knew my parents wouldn't approve of our marriage, but I wanted to marry you. The moment I saw you in your courtyard, your image stayed in my heart. That's why I kept asking your mother for the relationship. I presented myself as an orphan to get closer to your father. No matter what you say, I wanted to marry you. I went to Karachi for 10 years and didn't meet my parents again. But one day, a friend called me and told me that Wajid had gotten married. After his marriage, he forced our parents to leave the house. He took over the entire house, and our parents had to seek refuge at my sister's and brother-in-law's house. I went to my sister and brother-in-law's house, greeted my parents, and hugged them. They were very sad and they needed me. I had bought them a flat, and today they are very regretful for loving Wajid so much while mistreating the rest of the children. Due to their foolishness and injustice, they had ruined Wajid as well and ended up being homeless. My younger brother was abroad, so I called him back, handed over our parents to him, and reassured them not to worry. I promised them that I would always be available to serve them. Safiya, my biggest wish is that you forgive me and accept my parents as your own, so I can work in peace and raise our children to be exemplary, bringing them in front of my parents one day. Saying this, he became silent. I sat there quietly, thinking for a while. Finally, I held my husband's hand and said, Anis, the happiness you seek is acceptable to me. Whatever you ask, I will do. I have no grudge or ego regarding your parents. In fact, I'm happy that these precious souls have come into our lives. We will surely serve them, and our children will serve them too. May God bless them with a long life. I only seek their prayers. Anas was very happy and transferred the bungalow that was in his name to mine, so I could be secure in the future. He took me to Karachi to meet his parents. As I looked at them, I kept wondering why they treated such a good son so unfairly. I kept thinking that I would never do that. I would treat all my children equally because that's what our religion, Islam, teaches us. Whether the child is the eldest or youngest, whether they are daughters or sons, all children should be treated equally as they are all equally beloved.